Hello guys, so we're finally putting out this video doing an overview of Boomi. The idea is that you get to know Boomi better. So you could basically think of Boomi as the plumbing in a solution. It qualifies as integration platform as a service. It's actually at the top right corner of the Gartner Magic Quadrant for enterprise integration solutions. And hopefully at the end of this video you're going to be able to identify scenarios where Boomi could be a solution. Okay, so first of all, there are some links I think you need to know. There's help.boomi.com, which is where the official documentation lives. You're gonna find most of the things you need there, but if you can't find it there's also community.boomi.com. That's a place with forums and where you could also expose your ideas to the guys working at Boomi. They actually do releases every month. They may select your idea and implement it. Ideas get upvoted and downvoted. You also get points for participating in there. There's trust.boomi.com, that is to check the health status of the Boomi cloud, and then there's platform.boomi.com. That's where you're gonna build your processes, deploy them, add schedules to them, manage your atoms, deploy new atoms. That's basically where the work is gonna be done. So you've probably heard about atoms and molecules. An atom is basically a JVM. It can be deployed on premise on a Windows or Linux machine or to the Boomi cloud. A molecule is a set of atoms that has a load balancer up front. It typically uses round robin to distribute the work among the atoms, but you can install other mechanisms as well. And in Boomi, you create your processes in a canvas. Just think of an HTML5 canvas. And you have shapes, you drag them around and connect them to each other. There are shapes that can affect the flow of the document. There are shapes to execute things and generate messages. And there are also connector shapes that allow you to connect to servers. You can connect to FTPs, HTTPs, LDAPs, databases. They recently put out some Google Sheets connectors as well. There are many connectors. There are some branded connectors as well, like the Jira or the Salesforce connectors. Those are typically HTTP connectors with some configurations on top. With the HTTP connector, for example, you can connect to any REST API and do whatever you need to do. All processes have a start shape in their canvas. That's where the flow is going to originate. And the process may be started either because you triggered it manually, because it's set to run at a certain time with a schedule, or because it's set to run every time an endpoint was hit. Connector shapes differentiate between their connection component and their operation component. So you can, for example, reuse the connection component if you want to connect to the same thing, but doing different operations on it. So that really facilitates maintenance because you're reusing your components. In this video, we're going to be creating two endpoints. One is going to synchronize a database table with the users coming from LDAP every time you hit it. And the other one is going to query either the LDAP or the database, depending on the query string you send to it. This is what you're going to see after you log into platform.boomi.com. At the top you can see the build, deploy, and manage tabs. That's where you're going to build your processes, deploy them, and then manage your atoms in your environments. You can also move the web server settings in there for your atoms. They're using Jetty as a web server by default. The video has been pre-recorded and we're going to speed through it while I do the voiceover. But there should be an attached document which is going to explain each shape's configuration. Here I'm creating an API component and I'm going to import two endpoints to it. I have to type a name for each endpoint, classify it as REST. Input type I'm going to choose none because we're using the get HTTP method which has no body. The output type is going to be single data, and the object is going to be part of the endpoint's name. So we're going to be hitting something / query demo and something / synchronize demo. Here we can see the two endpoints we added. So if we enter one of those and we want to see its process, here's the canvas. It's empty. The only thing existing right now is the start shape. And I'm going to start adding some shapes right now. The first shape that I'm going to add is a try-catch shape. We've actually established a pattern inside our team in which we say that the first shape should always be the try-catch shape, and the catch branch should always call a sub-process that we've made that logs the errors to the disk and returns the errors to the caller. That sub-process is used throughout our POC and can be used throughout any solution. Next is the route shape. That shape is going to read a parameter in our query string, and based on that it's going to route to one of three branches. We could have asked for LDAP, database, or in any other case it's just going to throw an exception. The LDAP connector shape and the database connector shape are going to be sources of documents. They're going to generate documents, and those documents will eventually reach the return document shape. Return document is going to wait for all the documents to get there and then return them all together to the caller. Notice there's a map in front of the database connector shape. That is to transform the output from the database connector to XML. In Boomi there are profiles, so there's an XML profile, a JSON profile, a database profile, and you can use maps to transform one profile to the other. Or you could use the same profile on both sides and do reassignments in the middle, or use functions in the middle. Functions can be written by yourself in JavaScript or in Groovy, or you could choose one of the built-in functions that manipulate strings, numbers, dates. They even do SQL lookups, etc. This canvas corresponds to our other endpoint to synchronize the database table with LDAP. So as before, I'm using the try catch at the beginning. The catch branch is going to trigger the sub-process to handle the errors, and the try branch is going to be connected to the LDAP connector. That is going to generate documents for us. It's going to query LDAP and return the users we want. And those documents are going to pass through the find changes shape. That is a very interesting shape. It maintains a record of the document that passed the last time through it, and using a key column it can know if the current documents have been updated, added, or deleted, and in any of those cases it will make them pass through the appropriate branch, in which we're just going to do an insert, update, or delete correspondingly, and after that we're just going to generate static messages, and those message shapes are then going to be connected to the return document shape, which is going to wait for all the messages and return them together. At this point I finished configuring all the shapes. You can see the find changes shape has the UID as a key column, so that's a unique identifier. It's going to take that into account to differentiate entries. On the SQL statement, you can see the SQL there on the text box. It has question marks, and then the parameters are filled in on the bottom, and the message shapes have just static messages for the user to know if something has been added, updated, or deleted. This is the log errors sub-process I've been referring to. We're using a branch shape inside that. The way that one works is that documents are going to flow through every one of those branches in order, but starting a new branch, it's always a copy of the original document. So in this case, we're just writing them down to disk, we're appending a file, and then we're returning them to whoever called the endpoint. Now this is going to be the testing part. I'm going to use Postman to reach the endpoints. I've already opened the port on our virtual machine. I just updated an entry in LDAP. I'm hitting the synchronized demo endpoint, and I saw there was an updated entry. So I'm going to check the database. We have phpMyAdmin, and yeah, the name has been changed as I did it on the LDAP client here. I'm switching it back around to how it was at the beginning, Jorge Aurelio. I'm going to refresh. Well, I'm going to hit synchronize again, and then refresh phpMyAdmin, and we see it's back the way it was at the beginning. Now I'm querying LDAP. This is a response I got back. I'm just going to prettify it. And that's the response from the database. So now I'm going to change a name in LDAP. I'm going to synchronize the database through Postman, and then query the database again. So we should be able to see a difference between the response we got this time and the one I have on the back that we got previously. To wrap things up, my conclusion would be Boomi allows you to reuse components, and that makes everything easier to maintain. In Boomi, you don't have to worry about leaving connections open, for example, or other common mistakes. You also don't have to teach new developers not to commit those mistakes. Deployments are very quick. They take 2 clicks and just a few seconds. Most importantly, I think a lot of time can be saved using Boomi.